What up, everybody? It's the Build Different Podcast. Today we have a very special guest, the man, the myth, the legend, Leonard Jackson, great friend of mine for I don't even know how many years now. But also the guy that produced the beat at the very beginning, our intro, our outro. Leonard, just tell everybody a little bit about, your production, what kind of where they can find you, where they can find some of your beats, and some of the people purchase these beats because you make a hot song with a lot of his beats, man.
Oh, not a problem, man. You guys I'm pretty much on everything: Instagram, TikTok on Elementals Music, YouTube, SoundCloud. Looking to do some live blends or mixing here coming up in the new year to get myself set up to give you guys some good music to vibe to. So, looking forward to that. But that's pretty much it, man. I appreciate the invite for the show. Great conversation.
Yeah, and that's where the me being nice ends right there. You know what I mean, for the beat production. Now it's time to to talk a little greasy or whatever. You know how we.
Yes.
But no, today we want to talk a little bit about a hot button topic right now, which is college football playoffs. Talk a little bit about the future of the college football playoffs and the landscape of how everything kind of shook out. A lot of controversy going on. First of all, Leonard, let's talk about so the audience gets to know you and your football, who you support and everything. Who's your team?
I am a Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I know that's going to be hated by everybody, but again, best team ever.
You notice how he paused?
So a lot of haters. I expected that. I expected that. I expected that. We get that we don't deserve it, but the last 5 or 6 years we've been in the mix. So again, a lot of people hate it, but one of the better teams in the last 10 years if we're talking about being in the contention and stuff like that. So that's my team. I stick by them, win or lose.
The independent conference they win, that helped out a lot. The cupcake schedule that you guys tend to have. Central Michigan every damn year, it seems like.
We're going to talk about cupcakes in here in a minute. USC every year. Ohio State the last 2 years. Right? Do we have to do this? Ohio State the last 2 years. LSU in bowls. Come on, man. Like, stop saying they play a cupcake schedule. They really don't. They really don't. Every year in the mix. You know what I'm saying? So it's not our fault that ACC sucks. They signed the contract. We play who's on the schedule. So it is what it is.
By the way, you kind of
How
look
about you
like
guys?
a coach with the get up there. You heard me? You kind of look like a coach with the get up. Well, you did a lot of coaching. I'm not sure if you're still doing it now, but we can also link that to the link that in the notes as well. Your program and what you were part of. So, but yeah, let's get into the way things shook out a little bit.
Well, Ricky, how about we go through our fandom in case the fans don't know?
Oh, the fan team we're fans of?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start. I'm a big UCF football fan. We self-proclaimed ourselves national champions a few years ago. I'm sure Leonard has a bunch of gripes with that one.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, we've been very good the past 5 to 7 years or so. Young program, up and coming, got a great coach, great players. So I'm excited for the future of our program. Ricky, how about you?
Do you think he's going to stay?
I just support any of the Florida teams. Huh? I support any of the Florida teams. Do you think? So I'm not a
really. Is that a team? Not even UCF.
This man, you know what it is. This man's embarrassed about He's embarrassed about Notre Dame. That's all right, man.
Hey, man,
you don't gotta. You don't gotta try and clown me.
There's two things.
Because I know.
There's two things that we know about Ricky. He doesn't like the SEC for whatever reason. He doesn't like the SEC. Doesn't like Bama. Doesn't like Georgia. Doesn't like any of these teams. If it's anybody else but them, he's happy.
I don't mind Georgia. I'm not a Bama fan. You know where Bama came from when we used to work, all them damn people from Muscle Shoals we used to work
Oh
with. Oh,
yeah, yeah,
Bama,
yeah,
roll tide,
definitely.
roll tide. That's when I think my why I started to dislike them because just get on my nerves. But yeah, I just support all the Florida teams. I just like watching good games, period. And I think there's certain teams I like to see eliminated or to beaten more than teams winning. But with that being said, let's get into it. I mean, we've all kind of discussed it. I think I've talked to you each about it. Um, Obviously, we have the last four teams, which is Michigan and Bama. They'll be facing off. You have Texas, who will be going up against Washington. You know, decent games, but Sean, how do you think? What are your thoughts of how it shook out? Do you think FSU got a raw deal? Do you think anybody else should have been in that top four? Does Bama deserve to be in there?
I think there was no fair way to do it. I think someone was going to feel snubbed regardless. I do believe that. I don't think it was an easy decision one way or the other. But with that being said, yes, I think FSU got snubbed. The other two teams that went undefeated, they made the college football playoffs. No doubt about it. There was no issues. FSU did everything right. They scheduled out of conference games against two SEC teams. They won all the games they played in, and they got punished for something that was completely out of their control. So, do I think that that's messed up, and do I think that sets a terrible precedent? Yes, and I don't think that that's how they should have done it. If I was going to take out one of the teams that's in there to put a team in, I think I would take out Bama because Bama was not undefeated, and the only team that they lost to is the other team that got in, which was Texas. I think Texas deserved to be in over Bama since they had the head-to-head, and Florida State deserved to be in there because they did everything they were supposed to do.
I know that's going to cause a little bit of stir with Leonard. So, Leonard, I'll let
Yeah.
you go ahead and go and give your thoughts on it.
So let me ask you guys a question: who has the best win this year? The best win out of
The
the top
best.
four. The best win.
I know where you're going with this. You're going to say Georgia.
I'm
Bama
asking a good
beating
question.
Georgia.
That's all I'm doing. I just want to. I just want to know. Okay, so Bama beat the
I would say
number.
that's the best win.
Go ahead. That's the best win.
I would say that was the best win.
Right.
I would agree with you.
That's the best win this season, right? So you're saying they're not deserving to be there, but they beat the number one team, right? You're talking about a FSU team that played LSU the first game of the season, who wound up being 7-3, 8-3, and that's their best win. So if we're just looking at that right there, who had the best win? Because that's what you're saying. LSU, they played LSU. They played a 5-7 Florida team, right, which is at the bottom of the SEC. I would lean more towards LSU being a better win when it's out of Florida and LSU. But if we're saying who had the best win this season, that would be Alabama, and that's what I'm looking at. I understand why FSU fans are mad, but we're trying to pick the best four teams. So you saying,
But
if you all watch the games, right? We watch. Yeah.
What was FSU's worst loss of the season? What was their worst loss? I'd love to know. They didn't have one.
Let me see.
Bama had a loss. Let's see.
You know why? You know why? Because they played Boston College. Was it Duquesne? Looking at. Let me see here. Who else? You're giving me one game. You giving me one team. They played LSU. Strictly schedule has to matter. I believe Alabama. Okay, but Louisville. But Louisville was. Who was I think we overhyped.
Louisville was a top 15 team.
Yeah, 14. Yeah.
But so when Alabama beats Ole Miss, who was a top 10 team, right? They beat Georgia, who's the number one team. They beat I think LSU had got back up into the rank. They beat them. If you're going to give FSU that win, they beat LSU. They beat four top 15 teams. LSU, and think about this. I think I was telling you about it earlier, Ricky. I was telling you about when they played Duke, and we're talking about quarterbacks getting hurt. When Riley Leonard was playing, Duke was up in that game. He gets hurt. FSU wins that game. So and then they're down 13. They're down 13-7 against South Alabama, with their quarterback being before he got hurt. So it's
you want to talk? You want to talk about games and what the score was before it ended? Alabama was tied with USF, or up by 7 points to USF, a poverty franchise, like a poverty program right now.
South Alabama.
Into the fourth. USF could lose to South Alabama. That's how bad they are. They needed a miracle. They needed a miracle to beat a bad Auburn team this year.
But they still got the best win of the season.
And they barely won some other games.
What other game? They beat Ole Miss, who's the 10. You can't say Ole Miss is not a good team.
Okay, but what did they do against Auburn? Barely won.
What did FSU? It's a game against Florida. They barely won. FSU's 5-7. I mean, Florida's 5-7. So.
And they beat them in the swamp, an away game in the swamp.
Is it a rivalry?
Without their quarterback.
We're talking about two rivalry games, right? Florida is not good. You're acting like that. You're giving them credit because they play close. They're not a good team. It's a rivalry game. Who had the best win of the season?
Is some of this because you hate FSU? Because say Notre Dame was in this situation.
No. I'll tell you a couple things. I didn't like this. My personal opinion. Too. No. It's one of the things you picking the. I don't think me watching them play. I don't think they're the best four teams in the nation. I just don't. You have to take that into consideration. Do you think they're better? Do you think they're better than Washington as constructed?
So
do you think they're better than Alabama as constructed?
When me and Leonard had a conversation on the phone earlier, this was my conversation. If we're picking straight up best four teams, because obviously now we're saying that being undefeated is not that big. It's a factor, but it's not the biggest factor. It's like who you beat. And would you say that Georgia should be in that? Because Georgia lost to Bama, and Georgia had one loss, and Bama's ranked now. Like Georgia, to me, if I'm looking at teams that can beat other teams, in my opinion, I think Georgia could beat Michigan. I think Georgia could beat Washington, and I definitely think Georgia could beat Texas. So why? If we're going to play this game of let's put the four best teams in there by the eye test, why can't we have Georgia in there?
One, because go ahead, Sean.
No, I'm waiting to hear your answer.
Okay. The reason why I'm saying that you can't is because if you're saying that Bama beats Georgia, there was no way they were not going to put Texas in because they beat Bama head to head. There is no way they were not going to do that. There was no way that was going to happen.
That goes against what you were just saying. The best team.
No, it's not.
If the committee, test, do you think that Georgia would beat Texas?
Yeah,
I think it'll be a close game. I can't say. I can't say.
Now,
I can't.
Now you can't. Now you say you.
No,
can't
I would. No. I think. No, I'm saying I think Texas is a really good team. I think it'll be a close game, and it's hard to say who would win. I think it'll be a close game. That's just my opinion.
Beats, Washington.
Yes.
So that goes against what you just said. Is like you should put the four best teams in there. That's the problem.
Yeah, but think about right. But you got to think about this too, man. The Pac-12 was a good conference. They were a pretty good conference. So you can't say Oregon was not a good. Yeah. Go ahead.
Let's jump in here for a sec. You said you're a Notre Dame fan. Notre Dame is not in any conference specifically, but they typically play a lot of ACC. Is that correct?
Right. Yes.
So let's say that this same thing happened to Notre Dame, where they had a schedule where they weren't like I know this year they played, Ohio State and some other, of the top teams. Well, let's say they didn't play Ohio State. Let's say they were playing mostly the ACC teams that they normally play, mixed in with a few other ones, and their quarterback gets hurt at the end, and they're undefeated, but they played mostly ACC teams, and they didn't have any of the huge wins. Would you say, oh yeah, no, they shouldn't be in? Oh, no way.
I would say they're
no
not.
way you agree with
I would
that.
be. I'm being. But I'm saying okay. I'm saying is that if I had to pick the more fair teams, I wouldn't pick them. They always play a pretty decent schedule, so that's never the problem. Let's just be realistic there. They're not. They play 4 or 5 ACC teams a year, right? So they played Duke, they played Louisville, they played Ohio State, the better teams in the conference. But let's just be real. The ACC is not what it used to be. Clemson sucks. That was their best team for years. So that conference is not.
They beat Notre Dame this year.
Better. Who did? Yes, they did. But I'm still saying that conference overall, right? Miami is not what they used to be. Clemson's not what they used to be. Who else you have there? Who else? Who comes next? Florida State. They just can't. Go ahead. You guys are freezing up as a meeting.
The ACC had a better record. Like the ACC, I think it's you. But can you hear us now, Leonard? Is that better?
Yeah, I got you.
If you need to go out and come back in, you can do that as well.
Give me
the
second.
The internet sensing the BS meter. The internet's shutting down your connection, I think. Because my argument too is like, TCU had no business being in there. We saw that play out. So like now, why all of a sudden?
But you're speaking in hindsight, though.
Like FSU,
but you're speaking in hindsight. You're speaking in hindsight.
You're still doing the eye test thing, though. No, but you're still doing the eye test thing. You're still doing.
Okay, if you're doing the eye test, you can't. If you're doing the eye test, Rick, you tell me FSU is better than. Oh, looking at all the teams, Michigan, Alabama, Texas. If you're doing the eye test over the last 6 weeks. I just feel that
so
they were not the top 4. They were not the best 4 teams in the league.
The ACC won more games against the SEC this year. They were 6-4 versus SEC teams this year.
Okay,
and that's supposedly the best conference.
Are you talking about Vanderbilt? You're talking about South Carolina? Is that what you're talking about? Like, are we talking about Georgia, Bama?
Those games are probably in
you
there.
You say LSU. Okay, no, they're not. I
mean,
I bet you that it's like Vanderbilt. I bet you it's Vanderbilt, Florida, South Carolina. Tell me I'm wrong.
Missouri.
You're gonna throw LSU out there, and that's it.
I mean, then maybe Georgia and Alabama should start scheduling real games against out-of-conference opponents and not schedule a cupcake schedule like they do.
They don't? Texas is cupcake?
Texas was the only game that Bama played out-of-conference that was at all a threat to them. And they lost that game.
And Bama doesn't play these other teams in the championships in the past? They've beaten Michigan. They've beaten Ohio State.
Look at the past. The past is hindsight.
You said hindsight
about
TCU, so you can't.
Right, but you're saying that they don't travel outside. They need to schedule. You said they need to schedule teams outside of the South. But when they played outside of the South, they won.
They didn't beat Texas.
Okay. They
barely beat USF. They barely beat South Florida, 17-3.
Okay, so when your number 4 team is down to South Alabama before your quarterback got hurt, you barely beat a 5-7 Florida team. I know you're gonna say it's a rivalry in the swamp, but so was the Iron Bowl. Like you still gotta say who had the best win of the season. You can't tell me down the stretch Bama was a better team than FSU. You can't you they played tougher competition.
Another thing too, down the stretch, right? You're talking about down the stretch. A lot of people
Yes.
are saying this game, FSU versus Louisville, was like very telling, that FSU looked so bad against Louisville. I want to point out that they had their third string quarterback in for that game because their second string quarterback was concussed.
Okay.
A concussion does not last a month. That second string quarterback is going to come back. You have to look at how he played, not how the third string guy played, because the third string guy is not going to see the field.
But you're not answering the question. Was Florida State one of the best 4 teams in the country? Eye test.
They had the potential to be.
Were they?
This is my thing, branching off of what Sean said, and I brought this up to you on the phone. When Ohio State a few years ago won the championship, and they had Cardale Jones come in as the backup quarterback. They won the championship. You just you never.
But they also passed the eye test. They put 59 points up. They put 59 points up with him they
against who?
I think it was against Iowa. I think it was that year. Again, don't get me wrong. I don't think the Big Ten is a good conference. No, I don't. I really don't. Right? It's 2 teams and that's it. Right? It's Ohio State and Michigan. It doesn't. Did you watch Iowa play? They just ran the ball. They can't even pass the ball. How does a team that scores 0 points get to the Big Ten championship? I'm just saying. I think it'll be different next year when you get USC and Washington, but it's just 2 teams.
Michigan had less passing yards against Iowa than Florida State did with their third string quarterback in. Did they pass the eye test against Iowa?
Well, they've been passing the eye test all year, man.
Florida State's been passing the eye test all year. When have they lost?
They beat this because again, it's not about you. You know what? Duquesne can go 12-0. They passed the eye test because they went 12-0.
Michigan went Houston Astros on college football this year. So,
oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with that. I do. Yeah, that's a whole nother topic. But they beat Ohio State too. That's one of the second best wins of the year behind Alabama, Georgia. So I think they got the best 4 teams.
That was Ohio State's only loss, right?
Right.
Michigan.
Right.
So there's a case for Ohio State being up there too. If Michigan's number 1 team, well now the number 1 team. So
right.
I think if you're taking the best 4 teams, there's no way that Georgia is not one of the best 4 teams.
That's what I said. Yeah.
But you think Georgia's better than Texas?
Yeah.
They have the same record.
I think they're better than Texas. I think they're better than Texas. I think they're better than Washington. I think they're better than Michigan. And I would say they're better than Bama too. They lost to Bama, but I think that they, on any given day, they could beat Bama. They could lose to Bama.
But I think it's the way.
In my opinion, Bama's still shaky. It's not the Bama of old,
But I do feel like if you watch that game, it was a close game, yes, but they controlled that game for the most part. Like when Georgia went up 7-0, they came right down and scored. Georgia got back in the game late, but for the most part, Alabama kind of controlled that, which nobody thought. I thought it was going to be, I thought Georgia was going to win. To be honest with you, but
so that tells you that you think that Georgia's better than Bama as well. If you came in with a preconceived notion that Georgia,
I thought, yes, they were. The point spread said it too. It was like I think they were favored by I think Georgia was favored going into that. I believe I might be wrong, but I just feel like
they were. It was like a 4-point favorite, I think.
Right, and I think you got to look at Texas as well. They beat Bama by 10 points, and Tuscaloosa. So, one of those things too is like, yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I just think I think we're not giving them enough credit. You know what I'm saying? I don't think we're giving enough credit on the way they looked. So um, I think the way Bama dominated that game, I thought it was going to be Georgia Bama because I didn't think they were going to fall that far. I didn't think they were going to fall behind Ohio State, which doesn't make sense. That's a whole other thing, but I didn't think that was going to happen. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have been upset if it was Georgia, but I just think that with that head-to-head matchup against Texas kind of pushed them in because I don't think they were going to let leave Texas out of it because they beat Bama uh,
They
away
probably
on
were
the road.
dying to. They, this committee, they probably wanted Georgia, Bama, and they probably would have left Michigan and
And
maybe Washington.
and to be honest, if Georgia had won that game, I think FSU still would have been left out because then you have Georgia, Michigan, Washington, who are all undefeated, and then they're going to put Texas in because they already did it anyway. So FSU's still on the outside looking in, regardless of whether Alabama or Georgia won.
Yeah, that's why Ron
Yeah,
DeSantis
I just
is
don't think they're. It needs the
So,
votes, I guess.
but Leonard, what do you think?
Go ahead.
Leonard, what do you think about this?
Go ahead.
Right? What precedent does this set that a Power Five conference, one of the top five conferences, is now you can go undefeated in that entire conference and not make the playoffs? Like what?
I think it's been the precedence. There was always somebody left out. Think about when I think me and we were talking
Not
about it.
undefeated.
Remember it was the
No,
BC.
black team.
Yeah, think about this. Remember it was the BCS, right? The computers did it, right?
Mhm.
Computers picked the top four teams based on whatever they were using, right? We were upset with that. That's why we're letting computers tell us what we do. Then we get coaches in the room who know the game and look at it and says, let's pick the best four teams because everybody was upset because there was teams that were left out during the BCS era. So you go to coaches and those who were in the know looking at the game, watching the games and saying, picking the best four teams. I have no problem with that. There was also somebody, even when we go to 12, there's going to be somebody left out. What about that team at 13? Like, there's always going to be somebody left out, I think.
That was where I was going to go next, and it looks like Sean is going to branch off of that. Like, yeah, the thinking about next year and 12 teams, because I think having 4 teams to begin with was always stupid. It made no sense because somebody was, a good team was always going to be left out. There was always blowouts and always seemed to be blowouts up until the championship game every year.
When you talk about expansion, you talk about next year with the 12 teams. I think, yes, there's going to be teams that feel like, oh, we deserve to be in over this team or that team. That'll still happen, 100%. But at that point, any team that does exactly what they need to do in all their games, they're going to make it. Like, there's not going to be, like, if you didn't make it, it's because you lost games. And I think that's where I have an issue with the decision that was made this year was Florida State did everything that they could possibly do to make the playoffs. There was nothing that they could have done differently other than their quarterback not getting hurt, and they can't control that. So there's nothing that they did wrong. It was just the fact that the committee thought that there was 4 better teams available. So I think with the expansion, I do see that not being as much of an issue because if you really, really deserve it, if you did everything in your power to make it, then you're going to get in. It's the people that have like 1 or 2 losses that are going to be like, on the bubble. And I think that's fair. I think that if you didn't do everything that you could do, then that's it. Then you're maybe not supposed to be in there.
I do. Well, what I think is this. I know we look at what in the college football season, you lose one game, your season's over with, right? Is that fair? Is to say because you lost one game, you're not a good team? You're not better than the team that went undefeated only because it said 0 on the end? So, and again, that's where the eye test comes into play. Is like, yes, Florida State went 13-0, whatever they did, but if I'm looking at the other teams that made it, I just don't see them looking as good as playing as good as these other teams on both sides of the ball. So I get it, and that's why I think that's kind of why a lot of people like you lose one game, you're out of it. Like you can't get back in it. And I think the other problem is too is that they rank these teams too early. Like think about if you're already ranked in the top 12, you got a nudge right already, right? So why not just rank these teams later on so you see them play a little bit instead of just doing these summer rankings and all the stuff that at that point it don't really matter. Maybe rank them later in the day, maybe in November or maybe December 1st, like kind of like how they do the playoffs now. Rank them later instead of earlier because Michigan they've been at their schedule. If you look at their schedule, they play nobody but Ohio State. But because they were ranked so high, they can only even if they can only fall so far, right? So they have a upper hand to staying in the mix with the schedule that they got instead of being looked at of who they played and then rank them that way. That's just my opinion. I don't know what you guys think about
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Ricky.
No. You might have a point there. I think Notre Dame would probably be screwed then if they didn't rank them early because you guys always get that early.
that. Hey man,
You always get
Texas
that
A
early high ranking, and then
Texas A&M next
Stanford
year.
beats
Come
you
on,
or whatever.
bro. We started with Texas A&M. Come on.
Y'all about to get your ass whooped in the
I
first game
mean,
of the season.
the teams that would get screwed are the Michigan, like the Miami, the teams that every year, like the people are like, oh, they're going to be good this year, and then every year
Yeah,
they aren't
yeah.
good, So
I got you.
I have no issues with that. I think technically the college football playoff ranking will come out until like 3 or 4 weeks left in the season, something like that. Like the rankings before that are just AP poll and something else. So it's like those rankings really don't mean anything anyways. Like it means something in the sense of like, oh, like, how many top 25 wins did you have, things like that. But at the end
Right.
of the day, like it doesn't mean anything in the sense of like the playoff, because when the playoff rankings come out, they're always different than the AP poll. They're never like the exact same
Right.
25 teams. So
Right. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick.
No, I was gonna say I think too they just need to start, and it kind of sucks because the economics of the sport is like these smaller schools will what is the smaller schools pay the bigger schools to kind of come
Yeah.
and play
Yeah.
them and because they want or it's the other way
well,
around. They play
yeah.
this. They pay the smaller schools, but yeah, and that's how we get these schedule these sorry ass games, and so if I just wish the economics were different because I understand it from the small schools' point of view. UCF used to be there where they used to have to try and get on team schedules, but if there was more games, you know what I mean. Ohio State played Bama during the season, or Michigan played, you know what I mean. Like just from a fan perspective of wanting, because it sucks supporting a team and then you see Southern Alabama on the schedule. You see, like these schools you never heard of being, playing these big teams, and it's like I think if there was more quality wins for teams because they played better teams during the season, like you said, Michigan's schedule. I think that could go a long way, in if we're doing this eye test thing and saying, yeah, they played this team and they beat them, or yeah, they lost to that team. Um, I think that could go a long way in helping as well.
Personally, I think one change I'd like to see, and this is kind of adding the Big 12 and or not the Big 12, the Big 10 and the SEC a little bit. Get rid of these damn divisions. Like,
Well, that's what they're doing. Yeah,
why
that's
is
what they're
it?
doing.
Are they? Are they getting rid of them?
Yeah, yeah, they're getting rid of
Yeah.
them. I believe, but I think you're going to see it's going to hurt the smaller schools. To your point, Ricky, because they're going to, if you're playing 12 games, most of those games are going to be in your division now because you're adding a Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC, right? How much, you're going to be forced to play teams every week. Not every year, but every week you're going to have a tough game. So I think we'll see more competitive football from that standpoint. But I think what it's going to push out is now these teams like like a James Madison, who I think maybe they were ranked. Do you think they're going to be, if they go undefeated, can they make it to the 12th ranking and get into a playoff or something like that, or is it going to give
Liberty.
opportunities for those teams that we don't know? Yeah, like a Liberty, or is it going to be more of the same where now you have a Texas and Oklahoma now they're ranked in the top 50. I think it's going to change towards that where the little guy won't get get the opportunity. Luckily, UCF has moved to a Big 12 conference, so they'll have that chance now. But it's now UCF isn't that little guy anymore, right? So playing about their little guy, da da da. There's teams who were like them who might not get the chance to play in that top 12 ever because we're still talking about coaches and stuff like that making the committee making who's the top 12 team. So there's some good and bad to it, I guess.
I do think when they talked about 12, they left one spot in there specifically for like a non-Power 5 school if they go undefeated or if they like have an incredible year that they would make one of those 12 spots.
Okay.
So I think from that sense, I do think that it'll work out. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be issues with it still,
Yeah.
but I think 12 will be a lot better than 4.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
But yeah, my issue is like, why was Iowa in the Big Ten championship? Like you put Ohio State in there against Michigan again. You get Ohio State versus Michigan. Like that's what the people want to see. Have that game a rematch.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, like one of those teams can actually get in.
Right.
Like that's what I have an issue with is like, and same thing with like Georgia just walks into the SEC championship every year. Like,
well,
no one in that division is gonna beat them.
Well, they're a good team, man. I mean, I think Tennessee is a decent team.
But
Kentucky is a decent team.
Tennessee's okay, but that's neither of those teams are as good as Alabama, as good as LSU typically. Like I think the stronger division in that SEC is the whatever one Bama's in. East, I think. Right?
You said it. The one that Bama's in.
West, I don't know.
You said it, Sean. The one that Bama's in. That's why they're in the championship, man. Think about this. Look at this. The FSU plays Miami. No good. Let's go back to that. Miami, no good. Clemson was they were okay, right? They're Clemson of old. Boston College, Syracuse. I mean, come on, guys. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, you're leaving out Louisville, a top 15
who got beat
team,
by
top 16, whatever they were at the end of the year.
Who got beat by Kentucky in ACC school. So it's, Louisville. Come on, they actually. I thought they did more. I didn't think. Did you think Louisville was going to be in the ACC championship? I didn't. I thought it would be North Carolina, right?
I mean,
I thought North Carolina was ranked in the top 15 at the beginning of the season. I didn't think Louisville was going to be that high. You know what I'm saying? So, but I think I was telling Ricky earlier too is that what I was reading is that the reason why they were supposed to have that 12-team playoff this year, and once Texas and Oklahoma moved to the SEC, the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC made this forge to say we don't want to do that this year. So you got to blame yourself. You could have been in this year, but you chose not to go to do it. You chose to push it next year because, to me, FSU made the mistake of staying with ACC too long. They should have left a long time ago because that conference is not getting any better. You're adding in Stanford and you're adding in Cal? Is it? Like, how are you making that conference any better than the other two?
The Atlantic Coast anymore.
Right, like the other two. They're adding Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean,
California and the Atlantic Coast Conference.
I mean, at this point, it's really just it's not even a Power 5 thing anymore. It's a Power 3. There's the Big 10, the Big 12, and the SEC. Those are the three. And like the Pac-12's non-existent, and the ACC is not on the same level. But they aren't on the same level once the Pac-12 disbands. As of right now, I don't think the ACC is that much worse than the Pac-12.
No.
I don't know,
that's
man.
my opinion.
You had some good teams. Oregon was good. Washington was good.
And Washington.
Whoa, hold on.
That was it.
Hold on.
Who else is in there?
Hold on.
Stanford?
No, man. Who was it? Arizona. Arizona was pretty good. They're ranked. Who else?
USC.
Yeah, if they had a defense, but it was no, I don't think they were ranked, but I mean, you still had to go against that offense, which is pretty spectacular. So I think it's overall better conference this year. And in years past, maybe not, but I think the Pac-12, no, and nobody, this is the most I've heard about them as far as teams goes in the last couple of years. But I just think I don't think the ACC's been down
This
for a
is the
while.
best that they've looked in
Yeah,
years. I agree with that.
I just think the ACC's been down for a while.
But this is also the worst this is the worst the ACC has looked in
No,
years, in
man.
my opinion.
FSU, where's FSU been the last 5 years? The last 12 years, actually. Where have they been?
I mean, they haven't been good, but you've had Clemson, who's been a
Who
powerhouse for
else?
years.
Where's Miami? Where's Miami been? Duke was your second.
They've been
Duke is
slacking.
your was your second after Clemson. It was Duke and North Carolina. It was the whole North Carolina corridor that was carrying the whole league. So you know, um, I think that I don't think it's a tough conference. Yes, in my opinion, I mean I know I just feel like it's not as good of a conference as the other conferences right now, and I don't know what they're going to do to get to bring it up, but I think FSU should leave, in my opinion.
I mean, you also had some of those ACC schools playing against Notre Dame every year. So if you consider Notre Dame to be a good team, they're not in the ACC, but they're an ACC
Yes, but
affiliate
we
type
give
of
it
thing.
credibility. We won the SEC one year, COVID year. We won it. Like when we're in it, we can win it. So again, we've played we've played we because of basketball, because of other sports. But I think that the teams that we play outside that conference are tougher. Again, I'm not saying that every year we're going to be the best team, but I just don't think, and if you just look around the landscape of the ACC, I just don't see how they're going to be able to, without this 12. How do you think they would get in? Maybe one team. I don't think they're going to get numerous teams in, like a SEC or maybe a Big Ten or even a Big 12, get more than one team in. You know what I'm saying? Even if you expand it to 12, what you guys think?
I think it would take it would take two teams having a really strong year. Like you would need like Miami FSU to be like the old Miami FSU's, the Clemson to be the old school Clemson that was not old school but like recent Clemson that was
Mm-hmm.
dominant. Like if you had a bunch of those teams have a good season all at once, then I can see multiple getting in. But if you had only like one strong team,
Yeah,
then no,
I get
they're
you.
not. So
Dabo needs to get with that NIL money.
But no, it'll be interesting next year. Yeah, NIL money. No, it'll be interesting next year to see how everything shakes out. I'm much more
Yeah, me
looking
too,
forward
man.
to next year, and you know, FSU playing in. I think they who did they have them against?
Georgia,
FSU and in the bowl
Georgia.
game, FSU
Yeah.
and Georgia, and then they give them Georgia after all of this. It's like, come on, man,
Well, you're supposed to be good enough. You're supposed to be. You're
just
supposed to.
I mean,
brutalizing them.
if FSU beats Georgia in this game, I don't care who's sitting or what. The conversation is going to be had that they should have potentially been in the
Well,
playoffs.
everybody's
Like
opting
it's going to
out.
rehash.
All these players are opting out. Their two wide receivers might not even play, so you know how that is.
That's that's the problem with all. That's the problem with all of these bowl games that aren't like the championship that and people just sit out. So I'm wondering if that how that's going to affect the 12 team schedule next year, and then NIL's like, hey, you're getting paid millions now, so why not play the damn game now? You know what I mean?
True. I want to know when they're going to
So
start. Like, I mean, usually get that break with the bowl games and all that other stuff. Almost a month before you see the championship game. Like, when are they going to start? At what point do they start the playoff? Is it like a? I know there's one team that gets a bye. I think two teams may get a bye or something like that. Is that how that's how it's supposed to work? But I'm not quite sure. But just wondering when it's going to start, like, and when it's going to end. And I mean, now they're this is like more professional than anything. If you think about it, it's not really college anymore at this point. If you're playing these kids, you know what I'm saying? One, they're getting paid like professionals now, but that's a lot of games, man. It's a lot of games.
no, no. I agree. So yeah, we're gonna wrap up here. Great spirited conversation. Everybody tune into the college football playoffs. Let's see. I'm hoping that Georgia sent some people out to Bama games. So I mean that Michigan sent some. I'm hoping Michigan sent some people out to the Bama games and stole some signs. So we might get a Bama beat down in the first game. That's my hope. But predictions for the champion. I'll stop there. Ended there. Sean, go ahead.
I'll say Texas.
Texas wins it all.
Leonard.
Uh, um, I go Bama.
I'm gonna throw Hail Mary and say Washington. I don't know. I
I
don't
like
think
that
they
pick
win.
over
I
Tennessee.
just
Though. I mean Texas.
Michigan, Texas, yeah, yeah. And that's what I wanted to see was different teams. That's why it sucks having Bama back in there, and you always want to see a different champion crown. Get tired of the same
I don't want
teams
to see
over and
FSU in
over.
there, man.
But with that being, you don't want to see FSU anywhere. Um, but with that being said, we would like to thank everybody for tuning in. Leonard, thank you
Appreciate it,
for being
guys.
a special guest. Again, tune in, check out his music. We'll link everything. Check out, the football program that he was managing for quite a long time. Check them out, donate, help those kids out and getting equipment, just building the future stars of football. So, help out any way you guys can once we post that link. Sean, thank you as
Thank
always.
you, sir.
And with that being said, I'd like to thank you guys. Have a blessed week. And
all right, guys.